Imagine a future, right? Where your intentions, your actual thoughts aren't just stuck inside your head. Instead, they're direct commands for, well, everything around you. No swiping, no typing, not even talking, just thinking a command, and bam, your tech obeys. It sounds like sci-fi, I know, but it's really not anymore. It's the reality of brain-computer interfaces, and it's moving fast. Okay, let's unpack this. We're talking about BCIs. These are pretty sophisticated systems that create a direct link, a pathway between the human brain and external devices. So for this deep dive, our mission is to explore what BCIs actually are, how they work, how they figure out our thoughts, their really diverse applications, the big advantages, and also, importantly, the challenges and the ethical questions they raise.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that it goes beyond just controlling a machine. It's really about merging human thinking, human cognition directly with technology. It's a huge leap, honestly. It could totally redefine how humans and machines interact, blurring lines we always thought were, solid.
Absolutely. So let's start right at the beginning. What exactly is a brain-computer interface?
Okay, so at its heart, a BCI is a system that lets your brain communicate directly with some kind of external device.
Mm-hmm.
And the key thing is it bypasses the normal routes, the nerves and muscles your brain usually uses to make things happen.
Ah, right. So it cuts out the middlemen, the physical stuff like moving your hands or speaking.
Exactly. It's like having a direct line, and maybe think of it as a wireless connection from your mind straight to the device. So for you, the user, this might mean controlling a computer, maybe a robotic arm, a wheelchair, or even like a digital avatar in a game
Mm.
using just your brain signals, nothing else.
Wow. Okay. How does it actually do that? How does it read the brain?
Well, it works by detecting and then translating your brain activity, those tiny electrical signals.
Mm-hmm.
It translates them into commands a machine can understand and process. And there are basically four key parts that make this whole thing work. First, you've got signal acquisition. This is where you use electrodes or sensors to pick up that electrical activity from the brain.
Okay. Sensors pick up the signals. Then what?
Second part is crucial. Signal processing and translation. This is where, honestly, a lot of the magic happens.
Hmm.
It uses complex AI algorithms, machine learning, to interpret those raw brain signals, which can be pretty noisy and complicated. It's not just simple pattern matching. These algorithms are actually learning to tell the difference between the electrical signature for, say, think left versus think right, or imagine closing your hand. They're teaching the computer to figure out your intent from your brain activity.
AI translating thoughts into commands. Got it.
Third is the device output. That's where the interpreted signal actually controls whatever device or app it's linked to, makes the thing happen. And finally, there's a feedback mechanism. This gives real-time responses back to you, the user. And this feedback loop is really important because it helps you learn to control the BCI better, refine your thoughts, and improve the system's accuracy over time. Makes it feel more natural.
That makes sense. So it's this constant loop. Brain signal, AI interpretation, device action, and then feedback telling you how it went. It sounds incredibly sophisticated. But how do these BCIs actually, connect to the brain? I assume there's more than one way to get those signals.
Oh, definitely. There are three main types, and they each have their own pros and cons, kind of a trade-off. First, you've got invasive BCIs. These are the most direct. They involve surgery to implant electrodes right into the brain's cortex.
Whoa, okay. Directly into the brain tissue.
Yeah, and because they're right there, they get the clearest, highest resolution signals, the most accurate data. So their main use is for really serious medical situations. Think patients with severe paralysis or certain neurological disorders where you absolutely need that precision.
Right. Like I've heard about Neuralink, Elon Musk's company, and BrainGate too.
Exactly. Neuralink is aiming to help people with spinal cord injuries move again, and BrainGate has done some amazing work restoring communication and movement for paralyzed individuals. But the big downside is the risk, right? Surgery always carries risks: infection, potential brain damage, maybe the body reacting against the implant. It's a major procedure.
Understood. Invasive means high precision, but also high risk. What's the next type?
Next are semi-invasive, or you might hear them called partially invasive BCIs. With these, the electrodes are placed on the surface of the brain. So they're inside the skull, but they don't penetrate the actual brain tissue.
Okay, so still surgery, but maybe not quite as deep.
Right. It's generally less risky than fully invasive implants, but it still requires opening the skull. They kind of offer a balance, better signal quality than non-invasive, but safer than a fully invasive. You see them a lot in research and some experimental medical treatments.
Interesting. And the third type, I'm guessing this is the one most people might encounter.
That's right. The third type is non-invasive BCIs. These are the ones that don't need any surgery at all. They typically use external sensors, like those EED caps you might have seen, looks like a swimming cap with a bunch of wires. They record brain activity from outside the head.
Okay, so much safer, obviously.
Much safer, yeah, and way easier to use. That's why they're widely used. But the trade-off is precision. Trying to read brain signals through the skull, scalp, hair. It's like listening to a conversation through a thick wall. A lot of the detail gets lost. The signals are weaker and noisier.
So less precise, but safer and easier. Where do we see these non-invasive ones used?
Yeah, you find them quite a bit in consumer applications. Think brainwave-controlled headsets for gaming, or maybe for meditation apps to track your focus. There are projects like OpenBCI, which is open source, and companies like Emotive that make consumer-grade EEG headsets for research, gaming, wellness, that sort of thing.
So that trade-off is really clear then. How deep you go affects how clear the signal is. And that really dictates where you'd use each type. High risk for high reward in medicine, lower risk, but maybe fuzzier signals for everyday stuff. And that brings us perfectly to the applications. Because the ways BCIs are being used, or could be used, it's staggering. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. The range is incredible. Let's start with medical and assistive technologies, because that's where some of the most impactful work is happening. We already touched on it. But for patients with paralysis, BCIs are allowing them to control robotic limbs or exoskeletons, even wheelchairs, just using their thoughts.
That's life-changing stuff. It's not just about movement, is it? It's about independence, control.
Exactly. It's about restoring agency. And think about communication. For people with conditions like ALS or locked-in syndrome where they can't speak or move, BCIs can translate their brain signals into text or speech. It literally gives them their voice back.
Incredible.
And there's more in medicine. They're being used for neurological treatment, too, like monitoring brain activity to predict epileptic seizures before they happen, or helping guide deep brain stimulation therapies for things like Parkinson's disease, even just enabling people with disabilities to control their environment. Smart home stuff, lights, doors, appliances, all with their mind, giving them much more independence at home.
So beyond fixing problems or assisting with disabilities, what about enhancing people? Human enhancement and cognitive augmentation. That sounds like stepping into a whole new world.
It really does, and research is definitely pushing in that direction. People are exploring BCIs to help with memory loss, maybe for Alzheimer's patients, but also potentially to improve memory retention and recall for, well, anyone. There's even talk of brain-boosting AI assistants. Imagine connecting your brain directly to AI for instant knowledge access, or maybe helping people with ADHD improve their concentration.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot to think about. What about less intense applications like entertainment?
Yeah, gaming and entertainment is another big area. BCIs promise incredibly immersive experiences. Imagine controlling game characters or interacting in VR or AR. Just with your thoughts. No controllers needed. Companies like Valve, Emotive, Neurable, they're all actively researching this. Mind-controlled gaming could be a real thing.
My kids would love that. Okay, what else?
Well, there's also military and defense. This is obviously a sensitive area, but it's being explored. Things like brain-controlled drones or robotic units for battlefield operations. Also, cognitive enhancement for soldiers improving decision-making under pressure. And even exploring advanced communication, potentially direct brain-to-brain links between soldiers.
Brain-to-brain communication. We'll have to come back to that one. Okay, any other major areas?
Definitely. Mental health and wellness is another promising field. BCIs could monitor brain activity to help diagnose or track conditions like depression and anxiety. Neurofeedback therapy using BCIs to help people regulate their own brain activity is already being used. And simpler applications too, like helping people achieve relaxation states for meditation or stress reduction.
And maybe education.
Potentially, yes. In education and learning, looking further out, there's the idea of faster knowledge transfer through direct neural interfacing. Or maybe personalized learning systems that adapt based on your real-time brain activity, figuring out when you're engaged, when you're struggling, making learning more tailored and efficient.
The scope is enormous. From restoring basic functions to augmenting our minds, controlling games, maybe even changing warfare and education. It really touches almost everything.
It really does. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we can sort of synthesize the main advantages that BCIs offer. First and foremost, obviously, is restoring mobility and communication, offering real hope and practical solutions for people with severe disabilities. That's huge.
Absolutely fundamental.
Then there's the broader idea of hands-free interaction. Controlling devices without physical input isn't just for people with disabilities. It can be convenient for everyone in many situations. Another key advantage is real-time monitoring and feedback. Continuously tracking brain activity could allow for, say, early detection of mental health issues, or predicting seizures, or tracking cognitive decline as people age.
Proactive healthcare based on brain data.
Exactly. And then there's the more futuristic but exciting potential for enhanced human capabilities, boosting memory, creativity, learning speed, really pushing the boundaries of what humans can do. And all of this means BCIs are poised to revolutionize industries. They're disrupting and driving innovation in healthcare, gaming, defense, wellness. The list goes on.
It's an incredibly compelling picture of the benefits, but we have to talk about the other side of the coin. With technology this powerful, especially technology that interacts directly with our brains, there have to be significant challenges and, frankly, some scary ethical questions. This raises an important question. What are the big hurdles and concerns we need to be thinking about?
You're absolutely right, and the concerns are serious. One of the biggest is privacy and security. BCIs collect brain data. That's arguably the most sensitive, most personal data imaginable. It's not just what you do, it's potentially what you think, how you feel. So the risk of misuse, hacking, or unauthorized access is enormous. Think about brain hacking, someone accessing or even manipulating your neural signals without consent.
That's terrifying. Your innermost thoughts potentially exposed or even altered?
Precisely. So the need for incredibly strong data encryption and secure processing is paramount. A data breach here isn't just losing your password, it's potentially an invasion of your very self.
Okay, privacy is huge. What else?
Another major challenge is high costs and accessibility. Right now, especially the invasive BCIs, they involve expensive surgery, specialized equipment, expert medical teams. It's extremely costly. Even the non-invasive ones are pretty expensive for consumers right now. This immediately raises questions about equity. If these things become common, who gets access? Will it create a divide between the haves and the have-nots in terms of basic abilities or enhancements?
The neuro divide. Yeah, I can see that becoming a major societal issue.
And that leads directly into the broader ethical dilemmas.
Mhm.
Who should get access to brain enhancements? Should they be available to everyone? What if it creates social stratification between the enhanced and the non-enhanced? We also have to grapple with the blurring line between human thought and machine control. How much external influence on our thinking and decision-making should we allow? What does that do to concepts like free will, personal identity, responsibility?
Deep philosophical questions that we don't really have answers for yet.
Not at all. And we also need to remember the straightforward medical risks, particularly for the invasive types we talked about: infection, brain damage, immune reactions. These aren't trivial. And finally, there's still a practical challenge around accuracy and reliability. Current BCIs are getting better, but they still struggle to decode really complex, nuanced thoughts reliably. The AI needs to get much, much better for truly seamless everyday applications.
So we have the potential for amazing benefits, but weighed against really serious risks around privacy, cost, ethics, health, and just the current limitations of the tech itself. It's a complex balance. Looking ahead then, despite these challenges, the field is obviously moving forward. What does the future look like for BCIs? What are the next big steps or breakthroughs people are predicting?
Well, the future looks incredibly dynamic. One definite trend is deeper integration with AI. So AI-integrated BCIs. Artificial intelligence will just keep getting better at processing those noisy brain signals, improving accuracy, predicting intent, and adapting to individual users in real time.
Making them smarter and easier to use.
Exactly. Another major push is towards better wireless and non-invasive BCIs. The holy grail for many applications is to get high-quality signals without surgery, making the tech more accessible, more user-friendly, safer, ready for everyday life.
That would lower the barrier significantly.
Hugely. Then there's the really mind-bending stuff like brain-to-brain communication, or BBIs. Research is continuing here, exploring direct neural links between individuals. Could this lead to something like telepathic conversation? Maybe revolutionary ways to collaborate or teach? It's very early days, but the potential is staggering.
Wow. Direct mind-to-mind communication. Okay. What else?
We'll likely see expansion into the metaverse and virtual worlds. BCIs could become the ultimate interface, letting you navigate and interact in digital spaces just by thinking. Truly immersive. And more broadly, BCIs finding their way into everyday life, maybe controlling your smart home with a thought, typing emails mentally, using your brain patterns for secure authentication, like for banking.
Mental passwords.
Kind of, yeah. And then there's the grand vision, pushed by people like Elon Musk, of human-machine symbiosis. The idea of eventually merging human intelligence with AI, maybe connecting our brains directly to the cloud for instant information access, a true cognitive enhancement.
That's a future that feels both exciting and maybe a little unnerving.
It definitely is. And because of all this, a crucial part of the future has to be developing government and regulatory frameworks. As the tech becomes more powerful and widespread, we absolutely need laws, ethical guidelines, regulations to govern its use both in medicine and for consumers to make sure it develops responsibly.
Absolutely critical. So, what an incredible overview. We've gone from the basics of how BCIs work through these amazing, sometimes scary applications, the benefits, the serious challenges, and now a glimpse into this potentially transformative future. From restoring fundamental human abilities to potentially merging biological and digital intelligence.
Mhm.
It really does feel like we're standing at the edge of something huge.
I think that's right. And despite all the hurdles, the privacy risks, the ethical debates, the cost issues, the pace of advancement, especially with AI driving progress and decoding brain signals, means BCIs are undeniably moving towards becoming a much bigger part of our world.
It leaves us with a lot to think about. As BCIs continue to blur these lines, the ones between our thoughts and the machines around us, maybe even between different minds, how will our very definition of humans start to change? And what new kinds of connection, maybe even new forms of consciousness, might emerge from all this?